Today I'm cooking up a picnic, complete with picnic chicken. Picnic chicken, well, it means a lot of different things to different people. And this recipe was developed 15 years ago by a friend and colleague named Sarah. And in fact, whenever we make it, we just call it Sarah's chicken because we make it a lot during the summer. And her challenge was to make a chicken that tasted good straight from the fridge or at room temperature. What Sarah did is she made a spice mixture with a lot of spices and a little brown sugar and then roasts the chicken so that it has a lot of flavor and that little bit of sugar caramelizes so it has a little bit of crunch even when it's cold. So to get started, we're gonna make the spice rub. And I mentioned sugar. We're gonna use brown sugar, about 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And to get a tablespoon, I'm really just using the bag to help press the brown sugar into the measuring spoon. That way it's a nice packed spoonful. Next up, chili powder. We're gonna use 2 tablespoons of a chili powder. And chili powders are just a mix of spices and herbs, so choose one that you like a lot. This happens to be my favorite. A little paprika, which adds a whole lot of color and a little bit of a sweet flavor. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of paprika. There we go. Next up, salt. We're gonna use kosher salt and 2 tablespoons of that. The salt plays an important role, not just for flavoring the chicken, but for helping that chicken stay juicy even when it's cold. Some black pepper is next, about 2 teaspoons of that. Last but not least, cayenne. Now, how much cayenne you add, it's really up to you. The recipe calls for a range of cayenne, and over the years, I found that backing down on the cayenne, even though I like spicy food, is better because this makes a lot and you're gonna serve a lot of people, and not everybody likes spicy food. All right, so into a bowl this goes, and this is where you gotta use your fingers, get in there, and break up that brown sugar and make sure it's evenly distributed. You're gonna need a bigger bowl for this than you think. You think you could use a little spice bowl, but you have to have a big enough bowl to get your fingers in there so you don't make too much of a mess. Oh, all right, setting that aside for now. So this recipe calls for 5 pounds of bone-in chicken, and you can use whatever cut of chicken you like. If you want to do all breasts, go for it. All drums would be fun. I love the thighs, but it calls for 5 pounds, and given that it makes so much, I like doing a range of pieces so that everyone gets what they want. And the only thing you really need to do is if you have these split breasts, is cut them in half so they're the similar size of the thighs and the drumsticks. Now I said we have to cut it in half. I don't mean literally in half, because if I did that, you'd have a really dinky piece on this side and a really big piece over here. So I'm gonna cheat it on the thicker side. It's really 1/3, 2/3. There, looks good. Right through. And notice I have this handy cutting pad. I love these things, especially if you're just doing a little bit of butchering and you don't want to get your whole board dirty. This is an easy way to keep things clean and sanitary. And then this flat board can just go right into the dishwasher. So a big fan of those. There's the 3rd breasts. All right. Now, in terms of prep, the one thing that is really important is we're going to slash the skin in just a couple places. This helps the fat render during roasting so it gets good and crisp and it doesn't get flabby, because flabby cold skin on chicken is horrible. So all you do is take a sharp knife, take the very tip. You just want to make 1 or 2 slashes through the skin, not through the meat, just through the skin, just like that. And if you see any fatty pockets, like this looks pretty fatty, that's really where you want to focus the knife. All right, and there we go. So now it's time to put the spice rub on the chicken, and notice I'm using a nice deep sheet pan. It's the size of a regular rimmed sheet pan, but the sides are taller. That just helps contain the mess. And this sheet pan was actually a gift from my dear friend Greer, and it is a lovely gift. All right. So what you want to do is you want to sprinkle the spices over it. You want to peel back the skin on each piece and really get it onto the meat, because that's how you're going to flavor the meat. So so you peel back, expose the meat, and then put the skin back. On the drumsticks, I actually just peel them all back and then sprinkle them. Put the skin back in place. This is pretty much the hardest part of the recipe. It's not hard, it's just a little messy. I kind of think making a mess is fun, so it's all good with me. All right. So now I'm gonna flip them all over, get the back side. Spices everywhere. So now I'm going to start transferring the chicken to a wire rack set over a rimmed baking sheet that's lined with foil. Now this pan over here is actually where we're going to roast the chicken on. So you're just getting it ready for the oven. All right, so here are the breasts. Now the one thing we found over the years is that the skin on the breast meat tends to shrink in the oven. So one trick that you can do to help it stay in place while you roast it is to pin it in place with toothpicks. I know this is going a bit far, but it doesn't take that much time and it really does help. So just stretching the skin back out over the spices that you rubbed underneath, put some toothpicks in it, and there you go. I also like to put the pieces that have the thin tail part right in the middle where they just get a bit more protected from the oven heat because those are going to cook through pretty quickly compared to everything else. All right, those are the last pieces of chicken. Put them in the center, put this nice big one on the outside. All right, and that's it for prep. Now the thing is you have to let the chicken sit with those spices for at least 6 hours. But as I said, I usually do it the day before and just let it sit overnight in the fridge. And we're not gonna cover it in the fridge. You're gonna leave it open. That air dries the skin again so that it renders better and gets more crisp. So I'm gonna get cleaned up and pop this in the fridge. The chicken is ready for the oven. It's been sitting with the spices for a while. And again, I'm just gonna leave it as it is on the rack on the sheet pan. I'm gonna make sure there's a little bit of air between each of the pieces. That way, the hot air of the oven will more easily get to each piece. And I'm protecting those pointed parts of the breast by putting them in the middle of the sheet pan. Big pieces of the breast on this side, drumsticks on the end. So we're gonna start this at a lower oven temperature, 425 on the middle rack for 15 to 30 minutes depending on all the variables. And we're going to roast it until the smallest piece registers 140 degrees. Now that's not cooked yet, but that's going to be the indicator that it's time to crank the oven to 500, really get a crisp chicken skin and finish cooking the chicken through. And then that finishing time really varies depending on the piece of chicken. So at the very end, I'm gonna be very careful and temp each piece of chicken to take it out of the oven at just the right time, because that's how you know your chicken will be juicy when it's cold. All right, so into a 425 degree oven. All right, set the timer. And of course, I'm gonna temp each piece of chicken and take it out of the oven right when it's perfectly done. So the chicken has been taken out of the oven, and again, I took each piece out just as it finished cooking. And for white meat, that's 160 degrees. For dark meat, however, it's higher, it's 175 degrees. So each piece came out just as it's finished cooking, and then you let it rest to room temperature, and you can refrigerate this for up to a day, but eating at room temperature is perfect. So of course you have to remove the toothpicks, because no one wants to eat a toothpick. I know, we've all done it, right? Usually on saltimbocca. Oh, it's the worst. But it did its job really well. It held that chicken skin in place as the chicken cooked, so you get it nice and rendered. All right, so this chicken is ready for the platter. Now, when it comes to serving this chicken, because this is enough for a crowd, I'm gonna gussy up the plate a little bit, which is not my usual go-to. I usually don't gussy, but for this sort of thing, I'm all in. And I'm using this curly leaf kale, which will make a lot of people laugh if you've ever worked in a kitchen. This is your basic garnish. You put it on every platter ever known. All right, so what you wanna do is make sure the curly parts of the kale are just hanging over the edge of the dish. And then I rip off the stems because they tend to get in the way, but I put them down in the middle because it acts like a nice bed that the chicken can rest on. It makes it a little higher, makes it look taller. So that's how you decorate a platter with kale. I know, my culinary friends are laughing at me right now. All right, so onto the platter the chicken goes. Oh, I love those charred bits where the sugar really caramelized, because that makes the chicken taste like it came off the grill. Oh, such good chicken. I also always go for the piece that has a little bit of that char on the outside because I love that flavor. It really tastes like summer on the grill, even though we did it in the oven. Oh, kitchen picnic. Now for the real summer treat, the picnic chicken. It has so much flavor. All those spices really make it taste grilled in a way. And it's juicy. That's because we let it sit overnight with all that salt. This is the perfect summer picnic. See you next time. Thanks for watching. What'd you think? Leave a comment below and let me know what you're excited to cook this week. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. You can get today's recipes and more for free at our website, americastestkitchen.com/JuliaAtHome.